Hi, good morning, everybody. This is an interesting keynote because, well, it kind of came together out of a conversation that I had with some people in our office about a story. Before I get into that story, Ed mentioned a little bit about we've got business people in the room and we've got some real technical people in the room. Having said that, we've also got very small clients in the room, and we've got enterprise and public space clients. And to come up with a topic here that was going to really hit at the heart of everybody is a bit of a challenge. So we were having a conversation in the office about the agenda and what we're going to bring to the table for everybody. And I got off on a tangent because that's what I do. And I was talking about a conversation that I had with a previous boss of mine. And I was trying to understand, what is my role? And when he was trying to come up with the words about what my job was, he was at 30,000 feet and I was way in the weeds. Even as CIO, I was a cost center. And he came up with this methodology for me that really has kind of cemented my entire career. So I'm going to try to walk you through a little bit of this outline and really hope that you get some value out of the conversation, even if there's some nuggets of gold in there somewhere. But this was basically my entire 13-year career, a Post-it note. Keep me out of trouble. I don't want any nasty surprises. And that really resonated loud with me. Because, number one, I got to see where I was positioned at the time. And number two, I got to see, really from his perspective, he just didn't want to have anything blow up. We weren't very strategic. So how do you deal with strategic development when the time needed to put together a strategy and then actually make it useful is pretty limited? Well, regardless, I do believe there's still an approach, a professional approach, to building a strategy for technology. But the word's pragmatism. We've got a lot of changes that have happened in the last few years. 20 years, I know ADNET's seen a lot of different technologies. Maybe not quite mainframe, but maybe other people's backgrounds. But we're dealing with technology life cycles now that are in months, aren't they? How do you build a strategy around something that, from a consumer perspective, is a consumable? Your data is not consumable. The technology, the usefulness of that piece is not a consumable. But the hardware, the user interface, the usability is deemed useless in a matter of seconds when you can go to the App Store and buy a new app. How do you get your arms around your strategy at that pace? It's not going to change. But can this change get any quicker? Really? It's a huge organizational impact. It's a huge financial impact. And we're really trying to get our arms around this thing. So I wanted to maybe take a step back and say, with apologies to any executives in the room, this is kind of what the executives are going to want to hear. Everything's going according to plan. We're well within our budget. We have all the resources we need to do our jobs. I know, everybody says that, right? Nothing unexpected is expected to happen. How do you translate and motivate an IT person, especially one that has some type of responsibility? At the end of the day, making sure that everything's going according to plan on your business and your support of the business for the technology folks. An IT manager is motivated by having control of that budget, assuming they understand that budget. Sometimes budgets are not understandable. They're motivated by the completion of that project. They're motivated by a job well done. It's pride. Preventing things from happening, knowing that they shut a door before somebody opened it, that they made something available to those who needed it, it's just good common sense. And lastly, they want to feel as a part of the team. They want to be loved. I know, we all want to be loved. I'm going to take a quick step back and let's just deal with some interesting statistics. So, I know there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics, so I apologize. We can read through this a little bit, but if, according to Forrester Research, 70% of our data is spent managing inflexible and siloed equipment, well, there is a skewing here, right? There's a lot of legacy out there. But from a budgetary perspective, that should be ringing alarm bells. We are spending, as a percentage of respondents, and Forrester's not a small organization, 70% of our IT budget just to plug the holes in a ship. How much time are you spending dealing with this? Let's deal a little bit about mixed messages here. So, in 2012, 80% of the Fortune 1000 are going to be using cloud computing. But if you're doing anything, the message is that there's no contingency plan around this. So come back to my earlier slide. The pace of technology is becoming so fast that we don't even have time to build in the contingency plans when that new technology erupts, or God forbid breaks. And the news is filled with one cloud tragedy after another. In 2008, 50% of all US capital spending went to elaborate systems. Who's measuring that? How are we, as a technology implementer, consumer, user, actually showing the value that we got out of that expense? Did it add something to our bottom line? This is a really great series of articles that was posted in the Wall Street Journal in April. And one of the reports between the Wall Street Journal and McKinsey said that a good organization has these following attributes. A willingness by IT leadership to actually be data-driven. Having access to the data you need. That's never a problem, is it? Relying on data to guide decisions. So really staying focused on data-driven. Consistent business and technology processes, and IT governance. A real pause on this, because this is what's being assumed makes IT good. How we're adding value from the trenches to senior management. Are we doing this? My favorite saying, the bottom line up front. There's good news and there's bad news. The good news is there's no magic bullet to prevent these nasty surprises from happening, but there are some steps, some pragmatic salient steps that require good management processes in place on both sides of that fence. And that's what I wanted to leave with you guys today. So let's talk about a perfect world. You know, in a perfect world, now I'm speaking to especially the IT people. We've got a thorough methodology, a rigorous process. We've got metrics, a constant review program. We have control of our environment. But the reality is that our roles and the environment changes far too drastically for us to rely on a perfect world. The one thing that that stuck in the back of my mind when I was pulling this slide together was that even if in a perfect world you have that, you're going to be viewed as being inflexible. And that's a huge challenge. If you have all of the controls, a rigorous methodology, you're going to have to say no a lot. And in my world, that was a career-limiting move. Certainly didn't seem that I was adding value if I said no, no matter how robust my process was. So there's some guiding fundamentals of the avoiding nasty surprises strategy. And they're really broken down into my 5 areas. Number 1 is governance. If there's no governance, there's very little communication. Not about control, it's about dialogue. Risk management, strategy, relationships, and really the talent inventory and the talent development of your groups. And by bringing these 5 points up, I'm talking to both sides of the spectrum, the IT professional and those responsible for IT, big company or small, public or private. These 5 pieces are at the core of what is going to make IT successful and be seen as being a successful environment. For those of you who have a background in strategy development, you can spend years going through a variety of esoteric and academic processes. The reality is that for most organizations, the strategic process is a far different process, and one that it's usually pulled together at budget time. It's usually pulled together at last minute as justification, but then it's shelved. It's put away on the shelf somewhere and never dusted off. Does that sound like the reality? But a strategic process can actually be a guiding, divining rod for not just your IT organization, but your entire organization if it's used correctly. But don't lose people in academia. Let's talk about some processes that you can go through. If we look at the academic approach to strategy development, you've got environmental factors that have an impact, and I recognize that I'm completely butchering the 5 forces of Porter, so if anybody here ever taught strategy in college, I apologize. It's not what I'm trying to do. But if you look at some of those environmental factors from a business plan perspective, not an IT plan, and you try to get your arms around how does that impact us, these would be some of many, right? Your external factors, your competitive factors, how does that bring us together? If we look at this from 10,000 feet, and we look at a strategic plan and we break it into 3 areas: resources, the environment, and capacity. Those tend to be the big factors that go into your planning. Start here. Start here. It's 4 simple steps that you need to look at. Those 3, combine them into your plan. And what are those 3 made up of? Realistically, the resources are your people, your systems, your cash, how much time you have, your environment. Do you have a corporate strategic plan? And if so, does it make sense? Not many people today can point to a long-term corporate strategic plan that IT is supporting. It's, oh my God, we just won a deal, we need more systems. Oh my God, we don't have any more money, we don't have any more funding, we need less systems. It's very reactionary. What are those environmental variables that you can control, or at least acknowledge that you can have some type of formulation to your strategy?